Previously on the Beam Chronicles.
Press conferences sucked.
Any truth to the rumor that you're dating T.O. Smith? He's a professional surfer, claims to be Charlie Shayde's current top booty call.
See, as far as Beam was concerned, real journalism was a threat. Any attempt to ask a legitimate question to hold Beam accountable would result in an article that no citizen in the country would concern themselves with reading.
Sydney was just explaining to us how much he respected Clifton Hodge.
Hugh Conrad of the Capital Times.
Most of all, I hate that cocky, self-centered, sarcastic, offensive, slutty, skinny little bitch.
Foon shot a jet into the side of his head. His face splattered against the nearest wall like a rotten pumpkin.
I don't think I could circumvent or otherwise derail your romance, even if I were inclined to do so. I just wanted to address how we were planning to approach the issue from a public relations standpoint.
There's evil in this world, and you're not gonna fix it. Real, true evil. It's all around.
Now there's less.
I had some lingering bit of hope in my gut that these skyscrapers were safely evacuated before he launched his attack, but it was hard to imagine that being the case.
Howie, she's the failsafe. She's a baby.
Aren't they all somebody's baby?
Quit, Foon! You can't win!
I ain't trying to win! I just wanna go! Let me go, damn it, please!
You know we can't.
Why? I won't do nothing, I swear it! You'll never see me again, I just wanna go! Please! Please let me go!
We can't let you go, Foon. We need you. We need to keep you here to make sure Jackson's okay.
What the fuck else can I do?
These are the Beam Chronicles, with your host, MJ Dooney. Book 2, Compromise. Chapter 24, Charlie Shayde.
I spent an hour paralyzed in the oubliette, trying to come up with some way to free the failsafe, but I knew I was powerless to help her, even if I got her out, and she definitely couldn't help herself. Prophet would shut me off and recapture her within minutes, and then he'd just have to determine how to appropriately punish me, or worse, Jackson and Sydney, for my transgression. I'd be in purgatory, they'd be locked down, the failsafe would be right back in that tank. I had no way to help her, short of killing her. And 2, maybe 3 years ago, I wouldn't have hesitated to do just that. Maybe I held myself to higher standards now, maybe I was just a weaker brand of wicked, but I couldn't do it. Not anymore. I flatly refused to kill her, even if that would be the most merciful. Which left me with literally nothing. But I didn't cry about it, not even a little. I couldn't. I was too numb and, quite frankly, too exhausted. Once I felt comfortable enough with the state of my body, I walked around for a while, flexed all my joints, and then I grouped up to my room. And you know that phenomenon where little kids get hurt and they're perfectly fine 1 second, but then the instant they see their mom, they start bawling? That's basically what happened to me when I grouped back into my apartment and I found Jackson and Sid quietly, anxiously playing rummy on my coffee table. As they briskly threw their cards down and hopped to their feet, rushing over to me, my brave, tough facade came crumbling down like a sandcastle. I absolutely collapsed into Jackson. He leaned back, probably far enough to topple over if he weren't telekinetic, and he caught me, shooting Sid a befuddled look. I let them both be confused for a moment, just a moment. I needed a chance to remind myself there were reasons for me to keep living in spite of the horror show I'd just seen, especially before I sat them down and detailed every last word Howie revealed to me. Oubliette, Kowarski, his first anomaly, and finally ending with the failsafe. At first I tried my best to explain it with the right amount of detail to get them to grasp the gravity, but not so much that it tore up their insides like it did for me. I wanted to spare them of some of my pain. But I think it was the sort of thing that was disturbing enough in general concept alone to affect them, and recounting it out loud made me feel just slightly better, like I was serving my penance by reliving it, or something. I couldn't explain. By the end of it, I told them everything, the way she squirmed when the machine powered up. little noise she made. All of it. Sydney was crying when I finished, openly, loudly, without shame or regret, hanging his bald head and wrapping his hands around it, elbows resting on his wide-set knees as his back heaved up and down with each sputtering sob. Seeing a guy his size cry like that was one thing. I found a new layer of dread down in the pit of my stomach when I remembered his sister, the one I'd murdered. Big Purple always had a stronger response when little girls were involved. Meanwhile, Jackson looked empty, but probably just horrified. He slouched down the couch, leaning all the way back with his fingers interlaced behind his neck, staring blankly ahead at nothing, frowning as I divulged the gory details. When I stopped, he shook his head as his lips trembled. Then he finally spoke.
Fuck. I've used her twice, Charlie.
You didn't know, Jackson. You can't blame yourself. You didn't even know that she was alive, much less...
A baby?
His eyes suddenly welled up with tears. He scoffed, looked away from me, and rubbed his face against his sleeve. I knew why he was trying to hide his remorse, because I knew him all too well. Sid had his sister, while I physically witnessed it, which made JT the farthest removed emotionally from the tragedy. In his own stupid mind, this left him the responsibility of staying the strongest. Bullshit. But his typical brand of bullshit, I tried to cut it down. Yeah, you didn't know that.
This is so fucked up. Like, seriously, so fucked up. Even for Howie. Babies. I mean, how many does he have down there?
She's the only one. I'm sure I sixed around for an hour before I got my body back, and she's it. At least, she's the only one in the oubliette.
Does that make it better? Only one child is being tortured for profit's cause. Perhaps he deserves a medal for his restraint and compassion.
I grouped between them on the couch, grabbed Jackson's hand, rubbed Sydney's back. I felt so warm having both of them beside me, yet simultaneously so guilty, considering the lonely child I'd just met.
Christ, we can't even do anything, can we?
Jackson asked, still shaking his head, frustrated by his own uselessness.
We probably can't kill her. We definitely can't save her. Prophet would just take her back and then kill us and replace us. Ava 2.0 featuring leper, fly, Foon, whatever Kavorsky cooks up. God knows who else.
Yep. I think we're stuck on this.
We should try anyway.
Sydney jumped to his feet, forcefully brushing his eyes with his fingers, then clenching his fists and snarling over his shoulder with his back to us.
We should kick down the door and pull her out, regardless of consequences. We should die trying to save her.
No, Sid. It's the opposite. We can't die. We owe her better than that. Look, emotionally, I'm right with you. I want to go down there guns blazing and kamikaze the hell out of it, but rationally, we can't. We are in this shit too deep now to be reckless and die over a failed attempt at fixing a small piece of it. We need to do more. We need to do better for her. She's saved our lives multiple times now. We gotta do better than just a feeble, failed attempt at heroism on her behalf. We gotta go for the long haul. Destroy Beam, kill Prophet.
We cannot.
No, not now, but we're close. Closer than we were. Closer than anyone else. We're getting closer every day, and he knows it. He's afraid of it. He took a sabbatical for 8 months to try to keep himself out of the picture because he was so scared of what happens next. I don't need precognition to know we're going to be a part of that. You bet your ass he's going to be scared of us. We can't just give up now and die meaningless deaths not helping one little girl, no matter how fucked her life is. It's shitty. But we have a responsibility to see it through. As the only people in the world with a chance in hell at eventually slaying the devil, if we don't stay on this course and keep playing the game until we get our chance to finish it, nobody will ever stop him.
He is getting weaker. Or at least sloppier. He botched up suppressing me that one day. I don't care what you guys say. Oh, and he fumbled a forecast recently. The last leper attack, he actually forecasted the wrong window. Cranston told me. I forgot to mention it.
Also, he shut off the 6 blocker in the oubliette after we were done talking. He told me he was going to earlier because there was nothing left down there to hide, but he was wrong. I sixed around, I found my brain, which I realize isn't much just knowing where it is, but it's basically the first step to freeing my brain eventually, right?
Right. We are making progress. It's painfully slow, granted, but I think that's the only way we could ever make any meaningful impact on this mess. Work slow, set in like poison until he lets his guard down. What's on your mind, Sid? You look like blistering with wrath.
No, well, I am that.
He sighed, collapsing into a chair.
We cannot get distracted and thus lose sight of the higher stakes. Such is the nature of war. I still loathe it.
Me too, man. But it's what we got for now.
Right. Just for now. Until something good happens. We play on. Stick to the rules, get stronger, wait for Prophet to slip up. It's bullshit, but it's what we got. Jackson sheepishly winced.
Shoot, actually, not that anyone could possibly care less about this, but if we're really going forward with the whole play on concept, we should probably at least show up to the Foon press conference in 15 minutes.
No. I slammed my hand into my forehead. There's a fucking press conference for that? Who scheduled it? I thought he killed Peter.
Oh yeah, Peter's back. A few hours after we returned from the fight, we were waiting for you to get fail-safed, and he showed up. Told us he scheduled a press conference tonight.
Shit. Did anything good come out of this mess? He smiled sadly.
I think Peter's changed. Dying kind of destroyed his spirit. Based on his look, he may be a bit more reserved, less annoying from now on.
Yeah?
Yeah, he looked like absolute trash.
Elaborate. I need to hear it.
well, he was all jittery and nervous, twitchy, kind of gaunt and pale, out of sorts. I mean, he's a weasel. He probably never really thought anybody actually would break his skull for being such a weasel, and I can't imagine the shit Prophet gave him for almost ending the world, though. Yeah, technically, I suppose most of that was my fault. Once again.
Yeah, right. Forget the fact that you saved our asses in the end. I knew he was into taking blame, but again, I wasn't going to let him get away with it.
Come on. If I hadn't trusted Tyler in the first place, none of this would have happened.
And if you hadn't made nice with Tyler at the end, you and he probably would still be fighting right now. No. The order of blame goes Foon, then Cranston, then Prophet, then like 20 pages later on the blame manifesto, you, with a footnote explaining how you were the reason that he stopped. He stubbornly shook his head.
No, I shouldn't have risked it. I should have just touched my rock the second I...
And he absentmindedly reached to his neck, then frantically patted the top of his chest and shot me a look of horrified sadness. Oh yeah, I borrowed your boner rock. I pulled it off my neck and tossed it to him. He caught it above his head, barely on the tips of his fingers. Figured it was good luck. May actually be the opposite, though.
Thank God. You have no idea how much this stupid thing means to me.
Yeah, except I pretty much do. He blushed, then I blushed. We didn't typically express our affection so overtly in front of Sid, but for now I was just glad the distraction got me out of convincing him not to flay himself to death out of shame. Anyway, come on boys, let's get this over with. And as Sydney and I started making our way to the door, he called after us, unwilling to quit.
Just let me do the talking, all right? I know that's pretty standard anyway, but this is my mess. At least let me clean it up.
Jackson, honestly, please, we are in no mood. Shut the fuck up.
Truthfully, if all Jackson needed to make himself feel alright was to dominate a press conference, I'd grant him that. Not like he didn't dominate them all anyway. Sydney's contributions were still just the occasional bizarre observation. I'd basically regained my reputation for never speaking. It was a good enough place to sit for 20 minutes ignoring everyone. I had a lot to contemplate, couldn't tolerate the pointlessness, and if JT pulled some therapeutic benefit out of tackling this endeavor by himself, I wouldn't deny him. And after we settled into our seats and received a brief, shaky introduction from the husk of a man once known as Peter Cranston, it was underway. As I clicked my fingernails together and leaned back in my chair, I tried my best not to think about the failsafe. Instead, I thought a lot about JT. It was hard not to feel bad for him as he struggled through every answer, trying his best to give the appropriate amount of blame to his buddy, not belittling the crisis, while simultaneously not demonizing Foon and casting him aside. I didn't envy him in the least, plus I felt like crap for being so bitchy about it the day he told me they were sort of friends, especially now that it turned out they actually were sort of friends, and Foon wasn't playing him. To be frank, I wasn't even mad at Jackson for believing him. Partially because I didn't want to pile on, partially because it was only a matter of time before he gave me something much more important to be mad about. Figured I'd save up my rage for that. But more than anything, I respected his unconquerable faith in people. I couldn't replicate his compassion, forgiveness, or mercy, and were it coming from any other source, I'd think it was total bullshit, but not JT. I sincerely hoped this whole ordeal wouldn't squash his spirit just when it was starting to burn at its old temperature.
Got one for Charlie.
Groans, murmurs, general disbelief. I continued ignoring the whole room, in less of a talkative mood than any press conference in history.
You
Cranston,
must
this
be
guy,
joking
why the hell
me.
is he
I
here?
hate this
You kick
man.
people
I
out of these
wanted
things
to
for
kill him the
nothing. You
last
let
time
this
he
guy
came to a
come
press
back.
conference.
It was a loud enough response from people I cared about to get some of my attention. When I glanced over the tip of my boots into the crowd of reporters to see who it was that got them so riled up, I couldn't help but smirk a little bit. Because there I discovered the same disgusting reporter from the Fisher press conference. The one that asked me when I was going to do porn, tried to insinuate a romantic connection between me and... what was it, a surfer? Something Smith, something with a T. Toto? Tito?
T.O. Smith.
That was it.
And I have been talking again. He mentioned you recently had a day off from beam duties beginning of this month, August 3rd. Only based on the story he told me, the two of you did very little relaxing on your day off.
Not true.
Jackson growled, but dumbass ignored him, clearly forgetting his lesson from last time that pursuing this course would likely end with him physically injured.
Checked your schedule, which is public record. It confirms you were off that day. Any comment, or should I just run T.O.'s story?
August 3rd? I asked. The bustle of the crowd was drastically reduced from the first time I spoke to this guy. Still pretty significant.
Yes, ma'am. You were in Hawaii, weren't you?
I glanced over to JT, who smiled and shrugged, releasing me to do whatever I wanted from here. Truth, I figured, would be the most detrimental to this Dick's rumor, and I wanted a clean, true victory. Right now, like nothing else. Yeah, I was off day after Jackson's birthday.
Sure, I guess. You tell me.
I was. I remember, because I spent the entire day giving him presents. In every room of his apartment, in every room of mine, then every room of HQ, we didn't think we'd get caught in. Then a few we thought we might get caught in. Now, it seems the good Lord blessed you with neither good looks nor an overabundance of wit, so in case you're missing the subtle innuendo, here it is again, little more explicit. While your asshole friend Tio was off making up fantasies, I was with Jackson Teak because I'm in love with him, and I have been for 3 years. We were officially out. This bustle was 10 times the last one. They all stood up, clamoring and screaming, knocking over chairs and rushing to take pictures as I calmly grabbed his hand under the table. He grinned, sighing in relief that our secret was finally dead, one less thing to fret over. And when he hoisted our hands up, planted a kiss on mine, this only stirred up more fervor, more pandemonium, and more deranged noise. Sydney, who always had this distinctiveness to his voice that allowed him to cut through the loudest of commotions, just chuckled and clapped, grateful for the distraction, I assumed. I caught sight of Peter Cranston in the herd, all pallid and cadaverous, having a fucking spastic conniption. It was almost worth it just for that, but that wasn't the reason that I said it. Yeah, that's it, you fucking leeches, take pictures! I shouted into my microphone to get them to shut up and relax, which surprisingly happened almost immediately. I guess at this point they figured I was in a revealing sort of mood and they didn't want to miss out on the juicy details I was dropping, but I wasn't giving those out anymore. Tweet about it, blog about it, text your entire fucking contact list. Break the story of the goddamn century first before all of your friends. Me and Jackson like each other. Holy shit! Is that not the most interesting thing that's fucking happened in the last 24 hours? They looked at me like children. A room full of hyperactive children who broke the piñata, ate all the candy, then realized it was poison. I couldn't keep passing them along on their ignorance anymore, not knowing everything I knew now. Not with the weak squeal of the failsafe echoing in my tortured soul. I had to draw attention to it, all of it, this bullshit they insisted on ignoring. Nobody made a noise. Nobody moved a muscle until Peter hastily stepped forward to cut me off.
Okay, everyone, let's just take a minute to absorb
Peter, step off. I am not in a gentle mood. And he gulped, nodded, and retreated. Maybe the memories of death still lingered for him, or else, maybe like Jackson suggested, he'd finally discovered his true place in all of this. Quiet, in the back. Insignificant. These are the things you still care about. This is what makes you go bonanza. Do you all have any idea how blind you are? How stupid you're gonna look when it's all over? How the fuck is it still what you want to talk about? There was a labored pause, only interrupted by the hum of the fluorescent lights in the room before I could break the tension, keep chastising their ignorance because somehow that made me feel better. The last person I ever expected stood up to talk. Hugh Conrad of the Capital Times, Peter's lapdog, the slimiest eel in a pond full of eels. And if him breaking ranks to speak up wasn't surprising enough, the question he asked floored me.
Tyler Foon evacuated all the buildings in the block before he started attacking.
Now that...
Peter practically exploded.
Hold on. That's a rumor. We don't have any
I was a
sort
journalist once, you know.
He jabbed his pen at Cranston.
A damn good one. Before you and your circus came to town, I got a stepdaughter. She doesn't speak to me because of you and your bullshit, Peter, but she called me today because she works in one of those buildings and she told me. She told me he evacuated all the fucking buildings before he did anything. Why?
He spun to look at me, as earnest and sincere as I'd ever seen the man.
Why, Charlie? Do you know why?
No. It wasn't a lie. I was as floored to hear the information as everyone else was. But you know what, Conrad? I do want to talk about Tyler Foon. I could barely believe the words coming out of my own mouth. I don't know why I wanted to say what I wanted to say. Maybe it was something about pacifying Jackson's guilt in this mess. Maybe dying and being resurrected gave me a new outlook on the universe. Maybe if I argued for Foon's worthless soul, it would show that he wasn't the bad guy. And if Foon wasn't, there weren't a lot of alternatives left. Maybe it was just that simple. Proving to myself that our focuses were finally set in the right direction. Okay, Tyler Foon's a bad person. I'm not gonna skate around it. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I'm not gonna lie. I don't like him at all. He sucks. He's a murderer and an asshole. He's bad. And if things went the way they were supposed to, he would have gone to prison, spent a lifetime there, died in obscurity sometime later without you or I or anyone hearing or knowing or caring about it. That's the way it should have happened. That would have been the most merciful option for all of us, even him. That's not what happened, though. Instead, Foon got superpowers. Sorry, he manifested anomalistic capacities. Call it what you want. He was struck with the extreme misfortune of becoming exceptional in a world that hates exceptionality more than it hates murder. Heaven help you if you have both on your resume. And when Foon discovered he did, he ran. Because he was never supposed to be there in the first place. He ran, and then he killed, and then he ran some more, and he's done terrible, terrible things to a lot of people. He's done terrible things to me. I think I hate him more than any of you. Hell, I think I'm kind of entitled to that hatred, but on top of it all is something else. More powerful, more defining of my relationship with Foon, even more than hate. I feel bad for him. And look, it's not compassion. I'm not calling for compassion here because I'm not that hypocritical. I'm not saying if you heard his tragic backstory and tried to empathize with the circumstances he was forced to live through, it would make sense who he is and what he became. I don't even know that story. Nor do I care to hear it because for me, I already know it doesn't matter. None of it could overcome my preconceptions, and I know people who have granted him some sort of acceptance, some distorted type of forgiveness. I glanced over at Jackson and stared at him until he stopped blushing at his own lap and looked up at me. God bless those people for their patience and their mercy and their empathy because they're better than me. I am not one of those people. I'm not that good. He laughed out of his nose and nodded in appreciation. I kept going. And I'm also not even gonna bother calling attention to the fact that in the last 5 years, I've killed more innocent people than Foon has spoken to. Because you can't print that. Nobody will read it, or Beam won't let you. Either way, I'm wasting my time. And shit, even if you did, you just construct some excuse to exonerate me. I honestly don't think I could handle that type of crap anymore. Instead, I'm gonna request that you redirect your exoneration to Tyler Foon. We define him by his worst moments, his biggest mistakes. Can you even imagine it? Taking the shittiest things you've ever done, hanging it around your neck forever, labeling yourself with it, being judged by strangers for it. I can't. God help me if I ever get saddled with the same treatment the world gives to Tyler Foon. And yeah, you know what? Maybe for as unthinkably bad as it is, it's fair. Maybe his worst moment is just that bad he doesn't deserve to get out from under it. He should be smothered beneath the weight of all the corpses he created. He should be hated for what he is. I'm not arguing against that, but isn't there any room for something else? After spending a lifetime running from we don't even know what, he got trapped in a hole for 2 years, bombarded with hatred from every direction, finally escaped, and then what did he do? He ran. He kept running because honestly, what the fuck else was there for him to do? Don't forgive him. Fine. I don't either. Hate him. Fine. I'm first in that line, but I've seen enough tragedy and vile and malice in a world full of it to know evil when I look it in the face. And for as evil as Foon may be, the moral of his story is not evil. It's pity. I hate him so much. I'd pity him more. Yeah, Tyler Foon is a bad person, but... And I lingered on that sentence for a moment. There was so much more I wanted to say about Cliff Hodge's murder, the illegal arrest of Howie's first anomaly before Beam started, about genocide, about exploited babies in the basement forcing eternal torture out of coerced soldiers. I thought about Rick Fisher waiting for his reward, wondering if it was ever coming. I thought about Enzo Skelton, still hard justified in his own head, decaying in irrelevance. I thought about Micah Single, too deranged and broken by his life to care about pity or forgiveness or understanding. I thought about that boy from the school, the shooter I ungrouped with the same exhausted torment in his eyes that I saw in the mirror every morning. There's evil in this world. I wanted to tell them that between Prophet and myself, I'd already used up most of my hatred, so there was barely any left for Foon. I wanted to tell them everything, but honestly, how far into it could I get before somebody shut me off? I was surprised I'd gotten this far already. Besides, what would it matter? They were still gonna write about me and Jackson anyway. What was the use in trying to point fingers at the devil?
We have met worse.
It was Sydney that calmly and poetically finished my sentence. Yeah, exactly. Foon's bad. We've met worse. Cranston pulled the plug on the presser after that. Despite the slew of questions that arose from my statement, it was possibly the most I ever liked him in our entire history.
Thank you for listening to the Beam Chronicles, a fiction podcast written and produced by me, MJ Dooney. These outros are getting too long, so I'm going to keep this one brief. Stuff I say every time. Email me, beamchronicles@gmail.com, 5 stars on Apple or Spotify, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Twitter. Stuff is coming, I promise. The 5,000 download count, we're at 4,907, really solid week. If this week is the same as last week, we'll get 5,000 downloads with a few episodes to spare. All music and sound effects were sourced from the Epidemic Sound Library. Special thanks to Sergio Duarte for creating the cover art for the show, and thanks again for listening.